Ladies and gentlemen, here we are. Welcome back to another podcast, another live stream. Whatever. I mean, at this point, like whatever it is, right? I mean, like it kind of the lines have started to blur just a little bit because, like, I brought the live stream back to YouTube, and so it's like I know there's a whole YouTube segment of you guys that just watch it on YouTube, but then there's a whole segment of the podcast people that it is weird. You podcast people, God love you. You are weird that like you only listen on podcast form, and it's like you don't venture over to the YouTube because I think it's because I'm so ugly that you don't want to look at my face. Which that is a very good possibility about what's going on. But no, we're here tonight. We got a very special guest. I'm very excited to get to talk to him, and that is Mr. Okay, how do you say your last name? Because I don't want to mess it up, to be honest with you, because I've been saying it like 4 or 5 different ways. But like, how do you actually say your last name, Joe?
It's La
Uh huh.
Barbara.
La Barbara.
Yeah.
Okay, well that's easy. I was thinking it was La Barbera, but I guess I was totally wrong.
When I was a kid, like I'm an '80s baby. Like I got a lot of telemarketer phone calls that were Mr. La Barbera. How can I help? Or that kind of stuff when I was a
Mr. La
kid.
Barbera. I
Yeah.
think then I looked at it, I was like, La Brea? No, I was like, those are tar pits out in California. I was like, I know it's not that. I know it's not that. But no,
Right.
yeah. So we're joined by Mr. Joe. I'm just gonna call you Joe because again, I don't want to mess with the last name. But buddy, I can't do a good job of introducing you. I'm gonna let yourself introduce you and kind of tell everybody like who are you and like what do you do
Ooh.
and like why are you really cool?
Well, oh geez, I don't know about really cool. I think that's up for debate. So I guess first and foremost, I'm a competitive angler that lives in the Northeast US. I live in the very last 5 miles of Northeast PA, really close to the Finger Lakes. I grew up fishing the Finger Lakes. I called Cayuga Lake home for like 25 years. And yeah, I don't know. I got into like regional angling and like 2017, I think I fished my first BFL. I fished a couple club tournaments and Wednesday nighters in 2016 out of a tin rig. And then I just like all of a sudden, after like a year of fishing Wednesday nighters, I'm like, I'm going to fish BFLs. And then a couple years later, I started fishing the opens. And kind of along the way, I just met a lot of people. I run social media for like a couple brands in the industry. I design rods for a company, and things just continued like snowballing and rolling. And back in April, I was able to quit my job and run social media and kind of start a production company with the help of a tackle store on Oneida Lake that I work with. And we've just kind of like continued trying to be like a marketing and production company while I fish the opens and consult for brands. And I don't know, I don't really think I'm anybody. I think I was just kind of like this guy with a dream who was working 40 or 50 out, pretty more like 50 hours a week at his full-time job, and staying up all night trying to make things work as an angler. And just kind of always talk to a lot of people, tried to keep like a good head on my shoulders in terms of always listening and learning. And it's all kind of just been snowballed into now it's my full-time gig, and I wear a lot of hats. But I mean, you and I were just talking before we went live, like I wake up in the morning whenever I want to wake up or whenever kind of business dictates, and I just want to scream from the top of a mountain like I have the best life ever.
That's awesome, dude. For everybody that's listening, you can't see the smile on my face, but I love to hear that. I love to hear the entrepreneurial spirit like that's I think what drew me to you is like I was actually listening to Serious Angler and I was kind of listening to it was I forgot what episode it was. I think they titled it like you fell in Lake St. Clair or something. I don't know. You'll have to
Yeah.
tell me that story later. I want to get into that. But it's like you're like that's like Bert Kreischer's The Machine. That's your story.
Yeah.
I fell in.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, there you go. But I was listening to that and just your attitude towards the industry and your attitude towards like how you do you and like your business and everything about that. Like I love that because I'm right there with you. Like I love that entrepreneurial spirit, that kind of level minded. I'm going to, take risk, but I'm take calculated risk, and I'm going to do things that other people may never do, but I'm going to do it in a way that's super smart. And I don't know, I love that attitude, dude. It's balling.
For sure. Like, so I'll be 37 next month. I didn't even fish my first tournament till I was like 29, and it was like a Wednesday nighter. So I mean, I was like a full-fledged adult when I decided I didn't want to be like a weekend angler anymore. I wanted to like have a role in the industry, and I wasn't really sure what I wanted that to be. Like basically, before you get into the industry, most people's goal is like, I want to fish professionally, right? Like that's kind of just like what's on their mind. Like, oh, I want to fish the Bassmaster Classic, or oh, I want to fish on this tour or that tour, or I want to be a guide, or like that's a lot of people's goal initially
Mhm,
before they ever like get a sponsor, right?
mhm,
And then so like I goals have changed and have continued to like morph and evolve as I've learned this industry, and like probably not even learned 10% of it. But like as I've learned stuff about it, I've kind of adapted, what my goals are, and what I believe my place in this industry could be. And
mhm, mhm.
it's all just kind of like you have to be very fluid and loose and ready to just attack the day with a smile on your face. And it's hard. Like I have day, don't get me wrong, like I have periods of certain days where I might have an hour where I'm like, son of a gun, like
Mhm. Yeah.
things just aren't going the way that I want, or maybe the economy isn't padding people's, brands marketing budgets the way that I wish I had a place to be in with this brand or that brand, or like, or maybe this brand that you love and feel like you're super passionate about, maybe they aren't seeing your value yet. And like that kind of stuff happens. But at the same time, like even if you take a header off the dock in French Creek on the St. Lawrence, you still have to pick your head back up, dry off, and like keep going after it. And
Yep.
I mean, like, I can vividly tell you that there are brands that I work with today that when I first approached them in 2018 at the Bassmaster Classic,
Yep.
there are guys that I work with every single day. Some of my biggest sponsors, the guy that I approached to give him my like media packet and my like resume and application, like kind of scoffed at me. And
Yep.
like
Yep.
and that like I knew I was going to work with that brand one day. And like I've told him the story too. I'm like, dude, that actually like would have turned a lot of people in their like early 20s away,
Yeah.
and that did nothing but motivate me.
Yeah,
But
it's almost like a pissed off. It's like you just pissed me off to the point where I'm gonna work even harder just to prove
mhm.
you wrong. Like, yes, yes.
And like that was just because like what I think really sprung that was like I already had a career, like you had a career when you stopped teaching. Like
Mhm.
I had a career and I loved my career. I wanted so deeply. I knew I couldn't live doing that career forever. Like my soul would
Yep,
not have been happy,
yep,
and I knew, I'm gonna prove this guy wrong because I know I'm capable, and I
yep,
don't care if you're one of the biggest brands in fishing, I'm gonna work with you guys, like,
exactly.
you'll see.
Yeah, exactly. No, dude, I love that. I love that attitude because that was me. I mean, I remember first year I ever went to ICAST, and I think it was like 16, 17 around there. I mean, dude, we got laughed at. Like literally,
Mhm,
I had a guy physically in my face laugh at me and
mhm.
tell me, he said, "Good luck with your self-absorbed adventure." That's what he told me. He said, "Good luck with your self-absorbed adventure." And I was like, all right, then. I was like, I remember that. I'll definitely remember that. And I was like,
Yep.
it wasn't, 3 years later, that same guy was working for a different company and wanted to be my best friend. Oh, Alex, I follow you on Instagram. Da, 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 da. And I was like, yeah, man, that whole self-absorbed adventure is like really kind of worked out for me. But yeah, dude, no, that's legit, dude. I love it. I love that spirit. I love that attitude. And that's like what I really took away. I was listening to that podcast earlier, actually making the thumbnail for this. And I was like, man, that's legit. Like I love that. I love that spirit. I love that attitude. I just love to see people with that kind of drive because I think like in the world we live in, is as quickly as it's passing by and as crazy as it is, it's like I'm seeing more and more people start to realize like, hey, life is way too short not to just try something.
Yeah.
You know what whatever your passion is. Like, my wife follows some girl on TikTok that does plants, and like the girl like quit her job to do like plant and Instagram TikTok, like it's or TikTok and Instagram around plants. And like it's crazy, right? That's like a crazy thing to think. But here we are talking about little green fish and we get to do the same thing. You know what I mean? So it's just, I don't know, the world that we live in and just like my mindset on that. Like I love to hear other people who have that mindset because it's hard to find them sometimes. You know what I mean? Especially in like the normal run of the mill. There's Ben. He's ugly. Go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah.
What's up?
Yo, buddy.
How's it going, man?
Living the
Actually,
dream, dude.
Alex told me who was coming on tonight, and I'm like, man, I want to be on that thing. So we're on the phone
Sweet,
earlier.
dude. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, you two Northerners can just go, hey there, ho there, how you doing there? You go
Right?
catch some brown fish there. I tell you what.
Exactly,
Hey,
exactly. I got to listen.
You got them where you live too. Shut up.
Oh yeah, I
Oh
do.
yeah, they have like the real Southerners. So I mean, they're worse than the Northerners.
Dude, hey, let me tell you something about these smallmouth down here. And then we got to get into TikTok, damn it. I'm telling you, I want to talk about TikTok. So like these fish down here, I swear they're a completely different breed. Like not a different breed, they're a different species. Like you know how you have like northern largemouth and like Florida strains? I swear, man, like these fish, like the one in the thumbnail of this live stream is one that I caught in Michigan. Dude, you catch a smallmouth down here that is built like that, and I can promise you the damn thing's going to weigh 10, 11 pounds because they're like I catch 4 and 5 pounders that are 22, 23, 25 inches long. There was actually a 25 incher put on the board in in our monthly kayak tournament this month, and I think the fish weighed like 4.5 pounds. It was 25 inches long.
Caleb posted a picture the other day where he caught like a 22 or 23 incher, and it was like almost 4 pounds, like just about 4 pounds. Because Nathan and I sent the picture back and forth, and we're like, man, if they got that fish up here, so he got a 22 and a half, I think, maybe up here, and it was over 6. It was like 6 1/4.
Yep.
Like down there, it's a different breed. Those fish are just so skinny.
Yeah, I think too, like I've always thought the like southern smallies truly reminded me of like your true river
Oh
brownie,
yeah.
right? I mean it's the Tennessee River, but I believe like a lot of those smallmouth ended up like coming from those river systems, and that's how they kind of got their way into those surrounding bodies of water too, is
Yeah.
somebody took those genetics and transplanted it to those bodies of water. Because like if you look at that Susquehanna River fish that Nolan Miner won with, and I grew up on the banks of the Susky, like those fish look like those Tennessee River smallies, and even like some of those Texas and Alabama small, like that's what they look like.
Yeah.
And so I've always kind of thought that you have that more river oriented genetic versus the more like lakes and reservoir,
I
like
wonder if
true
it's
northern genetics.
I wonder if it's where they have okay, this is like weird, but it may have something to it. Is where they have less water over their head and their body just grows, it adapts to the water depth in a different way. Cause I've caught like river smallmouth here in Tennessee that literally are living in like I don't know how their backs aren't sticking out of the water. That's how shallow they live. And it's like
Yeah.
I've noticed that about spots too. Like these river spots and these creek spots are 17 inches long, but they're about that tall. Like there's little bitty, like long strung out smallmouth, and they have plenty of food and they're eating. They got big old guts on them, but it's like their body literally is almost forming. It's kind of like a fish in a fish tank. Like they tell you, there's certain fish that'll get as big as the fish tank that you put it in, and so it's like I wonder just if that kind of lifestyle almost makes their body adapt that way.
I agree. I think over hundreds of years, the lifestyle that these fish live, that's how they've evolved and they've adapted to those environments in that way.
Yeah.
What about like Niagara River fish? What do those fish look like? Are they skinny? Are they skinnier
Well,
than lake fish?
now you'd want to rewind like to pre-Goby, and those fish would be longer. I mean, and dude, you can like where we are, which like I mean, I fish at the mouth of the St. Lawrence, like Ontario, like Clayton, you know, where the elites launched out of the last 2 years.
Yeah.
I mean, dude, you can go 20 miles and like you can be 5 miles into the lake or 15 miles up the river, and you can tell like, dude, I can take those fish out of my live well if I catch fish in the lake and in the river in the same derb. You can take them out of your live well and you can sometimes tell the difference. Like, I mean, like that. They're shaped that much different.
Well,
That's
so we have goby oriented like inland bodies of water that'll be like right next to lakes that don't have gobies in them yet, and the fish are totally different. Like you have these really long, narrow bait fish feeding smallmouth, and then you have goby fish, and they're like the same length, but the goby fish is a lot taller and thicker, and the tail isn't quite as like fanned out, right? You get that big
Yeah.
fan tail versus
Yeah,
those
I think
bait fish feeders that
I think some of the, maybe not the tail, but some of that body shape too. Like gobies true, like a lot of people I don't think understand this. I'm sure you guys do, but for like some of our listeners, I'll tell them like gobies are the reason these fish get so big so fast is because, okay, so I just fished with Sarah Parvin down on her slab lab pond, right? And what she's feeding those fish is something that is really rich in amino acids and super high in protein, and it's helping them grow like bodybuilders are trying to grow their muscles. Well, gobies are doing the same thing that bodybuilders are doing with massive amounts of protein and dietary supplements, the same thing Sarah's doing, and so many people who raise their own like private pond fish, they're feeding them a healthy diet to help them grow and be as healthy as possible. That's what gobies are doing to these smallies. Is it's they're so rich in amino acids and protein that these fish, I mean, dude, a 5-year-old fish in Lake Ontario compared to a 5-year-old fish in, I don't know, like say like Casanova is close to Oneida, and there I don't think there's any gobies in Cas. I mean, dude, I mean, we're talking about 2 times the size in 5 years. That's how big and rich goby diets are, you know?
I mean, so it's just
It
like liver.
changes them.
It's like liver king of smallmouth when they're eating the gobies. It's just over here just
Hell yeah.
trin and test and everything else, and they're just jacks
Yeah.
swimming around down there eating.
well,
raw
so the
deer.
other thing I think you're starting to see, and I have a podcast we're going to film on Monday talking about.
Oh, nice plug. That was smooth. What's
Well,
your
yeah, I
podcast
got to plug it.
called?
Anyways,
one more time. What's your podcast called?
yeah, so we got a Bass and Bourbon podcast we're going to film on
When's it
Monday.
release? What days?
On Thursdays at 6 a.m. We have 2 episodes out from the 2023 year so far. But anyways, no, we're going to be talking about like the difference in these size class fish that you're seeing the smallmouth, right? So you're seeing a lot bigger smallmouth being weighed in, obviously from out west, but also like around here over the past 5 to 10 years, like the growth in these fish is crazy. But I think you're finally starting to see like mature goby feeding class fish, especially maybe not where you guys are at. Like you guys have already seen it or starting to have already seen it. Like we're just getting the gobies in Huron. Lake Michigan obviously has a big population, but like our fish are finally reaching maturity, having grown up from like a very young age with gobies. So you're seeing 4, 6, 7s and some places 7.5, 8s.
Yeah. We as fishermen are going to continue to see a very quick evolution. That dietary change is, I mean, Rudd wasn't being like he wasn't exaggerating when he compared it to like taking HGH and stuff. Like it's really that rich diet really changes things so much, and you do it for half a decade or a decade in a body of water. And I mean, dude, we've known Cayuga was going to break the state record for a long time. Though the guy that caught it has broken the state record 2 weeks before the season has started many times. It just wasn't legal, like because you can't box and legally weigh a fish outside the season. But like now that our winters and springs are kind of getting pushed back, it was obvious this was going to happen. Like, I mean, honestly, if I was 2 or 3 or 4 years further along in my career to where I was fishing full time, I mean, I would have been trying to, and I may try to take a few falls and chase these because like Cayuga doesn't freeze all the way across. Like it's like 600 feet deep in the middle. Like we may try to chase these fish for a few springs, especially if we know we have like high water or a late thaw. Like there will be a contingent of people trying to break it there again. And the odds of doing it, if you feel like you're chasing them good on Cayuga, you know how to chase those fish too. As soon as you feel like that window is closed for you on Cayuga, you drive an hour and 15 minutes north, and you just go try to chase it at Henderson for the first week of the year.
Okay, so
You
I
know,
got a
it'll
question.
happen.
Just on that kind of thought process, and we've seen, here in Tennessee, record cold like we've never seen before this year, and then we saw like record highs the next week. All right,
Yeah.
so like it literally went from like -15 to 80, like in 4 days. So obviously something is going on with the climate. The climate is changing in a way where we're having warmer falls, warmer winters. Do you think that the growing period or the growth period of like those big northern smallmouth are being extended some? Do you think that's also playing into it, or do you just think it's just these fish are literally swimming around eating protein balls and fat like constantly?
I see it's a tough thing to analyze. Like, I wish we had like Pangarac on right now. He's like the king of the numbers. Like, he's
Mhm,
Mr. Analyze Everything. To me, it feels like, even though spring is happening later, it feels like fall is lasting so much longer, right? And that's their, like, everybody knows in the fall you put the feed bag on, right? It feels like to me, them having that longer extended period to eat a healthy diet, and then maybe their metabolism doesn't drop so low that they become hugely inactive as long, because it definitely feels like ice fishing season is shorter. I mean, I have to believe there's a lot of truth to that. I haven't like sat down and analyzed, is winter truly shorter, but it sure freaking feels like it. And
mhm.
if it really is, all signs point to you'd be correct in that assumption.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. And then on the other hand, I read an article the other day from a scientist who said we're going into another mini ice age. So who knows what the hell's going to happen? I mean, hell, I mean, here in 4 years, we could be having a totally different conversation. Joe's like, "Well, I've not gone outside in 6 months, and I'm not
Yeah, right.
sun." It's like we had to buy vitamin D supplements and sun lamps so that we can get vitamin D. uh,
Yeah, I had to film more podcasts to sit in these lights, you know?
Hey,
Like,
that's it. That's it. That's great. All right. So listen, boys, I got to get this out here because I've gone down a rabbit hole lately, and this has nothing to do with fishing. It has everything to do with TikTok. Y'all got TikTok. Ben, you got TikTok. Joe, you got TikTok, right? Okay. Listen, TikTok Live is the greatest. If you want to just laugh your ass off, it is the greatest thing on planet Earth. Okay, so me and Bethany, my wife, are sitting up there before the live stream starts, and we're just scrolling TikTok. We hit a live stream from prison. Okay. 3 inmates on TikTok in prison, like full blown prison. We hit a group of women who, oh, I hate to be mean, but one looked like the Hunchback of Notre Dame, and they have fake babies, like these, but the babies look very, very, very real, like to the point where like it freaks you out for a minute because this one had a fake like chimpanzee baby who I thought she had a real chimpanzee baby, and then like and then the next one after that is like 80-year-old woman with like big fake tits, and she's like sitting there dancing back and forth on the live. Listen, y'all, TikTok's out of hand. All right, like I want to understand how the hell are these prisoners getting these? I mean, smartphones with internet on them and have the ability to do TikTok in prison.
so I saw, that's funny that that was the first story you told. I saw dudes live in prison, like hibachi style, like
You want sweet
prison.
carrot?
Yeah, it was like the Emerald Lagasse, like Mario Batali of like prison hibachi. I was like, what is going on?
I love
It
that.
was wild. Yeah, I mean, I should have followed the account to really like seeing what they were up to, like on a regular.
Yeah.
But I was just like so mind blown at the
I mean, I can hear
time.
the conversation that, dude, I follow this guy named Chad on TikTok. Oh yeah, tell me about Chad. He's in prison. Oh yeah, what did he do? He killed like 3 people, but man, he's the hibachi chef. You should see his
Yeah.
ass go. Just ta, 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 ta.
Yep. Yep. It was, and like, cause I mean, we see like in movies and stuff, guys, like the engineering that it takes these guys to like come up with how to make a tattoo gun and stuff. When he showed me like like, because I wire my own boat, when he was showing where he was getting the power to heat up the one like step on the like to the stairs to the second dorm of a
The
more
prison.
like prison cells, they were frying on this like graded stair step. When he showed how he hooked up electricity to it, I was like, that is a fire hazard. Like, that took some ingenuity, dude. I am so into it.
That's amazing.
It's also like an electric shock chair. If one guy steps on that thing when it's
Yeah.
electricity running through it.
Oh God. No, the one that freaks me out the most though is the women with the fake babies. Cause like these dude, it's sad. Okay,
What
it's
is
really
it? Like, what are
sad.
they doing?
They're just like sitting there talking to each other about their fake baby. But you guys got to realize, like, these are like anatomically correct. Like, these babies look like real. Like, they could come to life and just like it's really, really freaky.
AI do that?
Yeah, I do. It's so weird. And like, but they do, they like
It sounds
cry.
like you
and
watched this for a
blink.
long time.
Oh, dude, I got drawn in on this one because this one lady's got like an eye down here and an eye up here, and she's like sitting there with her fake chimpanzee, and it's just a lot. It was just like, it's called a reborn doll. Okay, hold on. Bethany just texted me. She's like, look up a reborn doll. Hold on a second, and I'll show you guys these things.
I gotta see too.
This is
Now here's the thing though, like
oh,
if you want
these
to
are
go
so weird.
if you want to go live and get a lot of people. So I went live the other night just tying a couple hair jigs, and you'll get like 2,000 people in there just randomly.
That's weird.
Oh yeah.
That's
If it's a platform you want to grow, like by taking advantage of any of the tools that they have, like
okay. Look at
that's the
freaky
platform. Oh my
things.
God, this is gonna freak me out, dude.
These things. Look
Yeah,
at
that looks real, bro.
yes, and that's what they're sitting there with. Like it's like a bunch of women, and they're like sitting there with the. I mean, look at this one. He's got a little, he's got little pocket balls and everything.
Dude, you gotta get your live stream's done.
Oh, I don't care. I mean, but like, dude, and like, look at him painting them. Oh, like that is a doll. Like,
That's weird. That's
these
too
women.
much.
Look, here's one of the monkey ones. Look at the little monkey. Like, and they're sitting there with these dolls, and I mean, like, these poor women are just not like. I'm trying not to be mean, but it's a lot. Like, they're not. You can tell they're not right. You know what I mean? Like, whatever the not right is, they're not there. And it's like, dude,
TikTok is the Wild West.
Oh, the 100% Wild West of social media. I've seen a guy kill himself on there, blow his brains out. I'm scrolling TikTok one day, starts a 9mm, blows his brains out. And I'm just like,
dude, here's the deal.
Okay.
Alex, it comes back to like what you're watching on there and interacting with.
Yeah, it does.
Dude, listen, my TikTok is broke, just like I am. Okay. It is mentally unstable and broke, just like me. It is rough. Like, Bethany, I'll be scrolling TikTok. She'll like, hey, what do you like? She'll, roll over and like, we're laying in bed. She'll lay on my chest. I start scrolling TikTok and she's like, what have you been watching? Like, what is this? And I'm just like, I don't know. It's TikTok. And it's like guitar stuff, fishing stuff, woman with her boobs out for some reason, man shooting people, Ukraine war. Like I went down this one rabbit hole one day, and it was nothing but like footage from the Ukraine war of people just like killing the shit out of each other. And I'm just like, okay, that's what my TikTok is today, and that's what we're going with. Okay.
It's so funny. Like, all of my social media pages, all I get are like DJs who are like mixing music, because I'm constantly looking for music to make reels to. So like all of mine are like, hippie chick DJing, Asian dude DJing, like, gangster DJing, white boy with half his head shaved. It's all that, because all I'm ever looking for is like the next beat to like make a freaking reel to.
I love it. I love it. And it's like, and they're like mixing together like Alan Jackson and like, a Cannibal Corpse. And you're just like, okay, well, that works, whatever.
Yeah. And now like there's this huge shift to like stuff like that where it's like country mixed with everything. And then there's this huge like let's take like 90s and early 2000s like hip hop and let's mix it with like 70s music.
I love it.
And like I'm having to like sift through this because like I run I think like 5 Instagram pages. So it's like I got to find stuff for everybody. Like I'm trying to make stuff for me and the tackle shop and oh my god, it's like I need more music than you. I don't actually get to like use social media for like anything truly like pleasurable. Like it's always like it's like work, 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 work.
Yeah.
They throw in boobies, work, 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 because they're trying to suck you in, like work,
Yeah.
work, 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 work. Like it's like, oh my gosh, and it's crazy.
That's funny.
Never ends.
That's funny. Yeah, that was with me with like when I did that first reel with the Indian where I set the hook and
Mhm.
I got that from a gaming dude on TikTok. Well,
Yeah.
now I follow like 12 gaming dudes on TikTok, and
Oh
like
yeah.
I'll just be scrolling TikTok, and Bethany finally is to the point. Anybody around me, really, they're like, "Okay, you're gonna have to stop," because it's
Mhm.
just like side in, and it's like, "Oh, spank me, daddy!" Bah!
Yep.
Oh my god! And it's just like
Yep.
that's enough. We've had way too much of that. Okay.
It's so like it's fun though. Like
Oh,
I'm
yes.
not gonna lie. Like if I could be doing worse things for work in December and January,
1000%. All right, I got something else. I found this interesting. This is actually a conversation I was having with Bailey and Deacon on the Serious Anglers thing a couple weeks ago that we did for 2023 and end of the year. And I found this interesting. And Joe, I think you'll have an opinion on this. Ben, I don't know, maybe. We don't really care about Ben's opinion anyway, because he's leaving. Bye. So I'm interested by this idea. Like we got to let me kind of lay out the scenario. Professional bass fishing is one of the only professional sports where you like still like pay entry fees to and like you don't just get paid to show up, right? It's like what it is. But I found it interesting, and Deacon kind of said that like if you really look at it, that like most of these fishing organizations are like barely making it. Okay. But like I know Knoxville, the city of Knoxville, paid Bass like well over $1 million just to show up to do the classic here. And then you've got all these other companies that are also paying them to have sponsorship representation. Like, I want to know, like, is it like how much money? And I would love it if you know anybody, Joe, or if anybody in the comment section or anybody that wants to send me somebody's contact at like Bass or MLF. Like, I'll have Boyd Duckett on the podcast and ask him this question. But like, are they really just barely cutting it by, or like are they making money? Like they have to be making money to keep the lights on in the place, or do they just really have so many employees and so much overhead and so much stuff that they literally are barely cutting it by at the end of the year?
I choose to believe, and I have one one small and one giant piece of supporting information that I'm just gonna ride like I do in a lot of things, and I'm like, I don't want to be told otherwise,
Yeah,
and
I love
it's because I don't want my mind blown is the
Mhm.
reason I don't really want to know the answer,
Anybody says anything,
but
it's la 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 la. You're not talking.
exactly right. I'm exactly like that. I know Bass takes good care of its employees, and it has really good employees. And one of the reasons that I can say that with so much confidence is because I work with a lot of brands, right?
Mm.
And I've said goodbye to a number of brands too. And one of the reasons that I found to be a trend with some of the brands that I haven't continued to work with, is there aren't a lot of people doing the job that they're qualified to do. They're forced, and I think this happens not just in the fishing industry, everywhere in every industry,
Mhm.
where people get forced to move up a position because nobody in our country truly wants to work. Right? You have guys like you and me who were probably needed to stay in the careers that we needed to be in to truly like because we were bringing the average up. And I'm not
Absolutely.
saying that arrogantly. Like you and I have had conversations about how passionately we did our previous jobs, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I believe I did a pretty darn good job at my last one. I had colleagues that I know were not doing a good job
Yeah.
and getting paid very similarly.
Yeah.
So my point is, a lot of us get moved up to positions that we might not be qualified for. I think Bass has very qualified, experienced, great employees working for them, and that's not cheap, or they wouldn't stick around. And I don't think Bass has a very high turnover. People who work there, I am always hearing have double digits in years of their career there. So that's a small piece of supporting information that I believe plays into it. The other big thing is it costs a lot for Bass to put this professional sport on a television stage. Like we'll never have Coca-Cola money. We'll never have McDonald's money.
Never. Yeah.
We'll never have those big endorsement dollars flooding into our sport because let's be honest, a football game is about as long as someone's willing to sit in front of the television. And our sport starts at sunrise and goes until the middle of the afternoon. And then weigh-in isn't quick. Yeah. Like, we just we're not in a sport that is truly going to grab a ton of people's attention. So why would a giant brand like McDonald's or Coca-Cola or Pepsi or, these massive brands with massive marketing budgets, why would they invest in us chasing fish around? And we're not, dude, we can be spread out over 90 miles on a fishing surface. Like guys fishing way up in Messina or Waddington versus guys fishing at the mouth of Lake Ontario. Like Toledo Bend is like 175,000 acres. Like these bodies of waters are that we fish on are massive. It's so hard for the general public to understand. We're never going to see that big time money come in. And this isn't like, let me just add this in quick. I actually so I spent some time traveling with Pangerac and that group that qualified 2 of their 4. I got to stay with them last year at the Chesapeake, and a lot of what I have gained in terms of an understanding of this is why we don't have big money. This is kind of Hallman speaking. This is really Bradley Hallman's opinion, but I believe it to be so true. And this is why we're always going to be why I'm always going to have to explain to people what a professional fisherman is. Like why there always be 35 different definitions of what a professional angler is. It's just, we're never going to see that kind of money or we'd have to find a different way to compete on the final day. Yeah. We'd have to have almost 4-hour shootout where they let us launch from any boat launch, and we're going to start the clock on go, and we're going to catch, weigh, and release the top 8 on the final day, or the top 4, and we're going to start from 0. And that's all that we're going to have to find a way to be more television presentable, or we're always going to kind of be like this. And I agree with Hallman. I think he's kind of got the nail hit on the head, is if we don't find another way, we're always going to be poor. It's just kind of how it's going to be. It's the nature of our business.
I just find it interesting, and that's kind of, I was like, that was an excellent explanation. And honestly, it's like I don't have an opinion on it yet because I'm still trying to kind of figure out what the logistics of it actually is. Because it's like when you hear the city of Knoxville, it's a 2-pronged problem for me. Number one, who the hell had said that they could spend my tax money on that? That's a whole nother problem. That's a podcast for another time that is going to happen. I'm actually having that on here soon, so that's going to be fun. But number 2, it's like, okay, so we've spent, let's say $1.7 million, where does $1.7 million go? I would love to know, then see the breakdown of okay, we have now handed Bass $1.7 million. Are we going to see what's the ROI on 1.7? Because let me say this. UT has a football game. It's UT Volunteers. It's the University of Tennessee, 115,000.
There'll probably be a Sweet 16 game while we're down there, right?
Seriously, yeah. And
last time we were there, UT won a Sweet 16 game I think the same day as day one of the Classic in 2018.
Yeah, and so something, and then we have the University of Tennessee basketball. We have all this thing, all this stuff. When UT plays football, the city of Knoxville makes like $15 million a game or something like. I mean, it's stupid, and
Yeah.
it's like when you spend 1.7 on Bass, do we see an ROI that's effective? And then what is Bass doing with that money? Because like the payouts aren't getting any bigger. They're still $100,000, $200,000, $300,000. I mean, how much you win when you win the Classic? 300 grand.
Is it? I thought it was 2. Yeah, you're right. It's probably 3.
Okay, 300 grand. And it's like, but like out of all that money that they've made, I guess it's just a wash at the end of the year because they, like you said, there's not a giant turnover in the company. They are paying their employees very well. And then the factor that you said that I didn't take into consideration is we are paying to be put on TV. Like we have to kind of like pay for our spot. Whereas like NFL football walks in dick a swinging and they're just like, we want Monday, Thursday, Sunday. We want every single ad. And there's nothing you can do to change it. And the TV, stations are like, yes, our ratings. You know what I mean? Whereas like Bass, they're like, so a couple 100,000 people going to tune into this, huh? And they're like, yep. Like for like how long? Oh, probably all year. And they're like, oh yeah, that's going to cost you $6 million. And Bass is like, okay, well, we got to go find our $6 million just to pay for that,
Yeah. I mean, and well, I'll say this too, like I don't follow the Bass Pro Tour. But I would imagine they can't possibly be doing as good as Bass or some of the news that comes out about like like when they had to go back to like paying entry fees and stuff. Like they wouldn't be trending in that direction. They were doing what I think Bass is doing too. Is I think Bass is doing a really good job of building building their brand continually and adding to their brand. And by that I kind of mean a lot goes into keeping their image in the public eye. Like they do a lot to like promote their anglers too. Their anglers as individuals. A lot still goes into the written word, unfortunately. And you and I as content creators, I think that's still. I mean, I guess people are still reading the magazine and stuff, but
legacy media, it's dead. Like I'll go.
Yeah.
Listen, TV, radio, and written word is dead. I don't care what you say about it. It's gone. Like, and it's gonna be it. My philosophy is if the NFL signs the deal with YouTube to have the exclusive rights to all that, we're done. Like it's dead forever. But anyway, go on. I'm sorry I interrupted you.
I think it's dying. I don't think it's dead, and I think there'll still be old souls for another 15 years or so, but it's definitely dying quickly.
Yeah.
But again, they're both just opinions, yours and mine. But like, I really kind of got sidetracked. I really think that Bass does a lot to continue to build for future years. I think other organizations are kind of living year by year. Like there's like 5 or 6 other pretty major organizations. You've got MLF, you've got MPFL, you've got the Wild West Trail, you've got ABT. I think a lot of those organizations are living kind of year to year. Whereas I think Bass could take some kind of a financial hit and probably survive longer than the others. I really think they've put enough back into the anglers, and I think they've kind of built something that has a little longer shelf life. I don't know if it's 3 years that they could really go without getting, good contracts with cities like Knoxville, but they could go for a little while. I think they're building something that's a little bit harder to knock down, I guess.
I think we need to take a different approach as like a bass fishing community as a whole, or if you want it to be a professional sport, there has to be a revamp of what professional bass fishing is. Like you have to have a product that you can sell on television, because you can't tell me that people won't sit there and watch 8 hours because they do it with golf. And then the next thing is like you have to just have like a premier group. Right now, everyone's divided between like 5 different major leagues, and then money's divided, and there's no watchable way to like really enjoy the sport, with the exception of like live, which they put on TV and is a pretty good product. But the problem is, we have money coming into the sport. Like, think of all the money, right? Whether it's in boats, baits, rods, I mean, all of this stuff that golf has a very similar. I mean, I've been trying to think about it. Golf has to have a very similar input as far as like financial, like sales, right? So where's the money going? Because I just don't quite get like
I,
why we can't have a professional tier. We're just not
I
structured
think,
right.
well, I think golf racing, especially, I don't the brands that are like, look at TaylorMade, Callaway, Titleist, or you go to racing, look at Chevrolet, or if you're looking at Indy, look at Ferrari and Aston Martin. Aren't those brands putting an astronomical amount of money back into the competitive organization? Like, aren't they
Yeah.
putting it into NASCAR and the PGA and Indy? And aren't they, F1? Like, aren't they putting all this money
So,
back? I don't
but
think these brands are putting back the
and
money that
you want to
those
know why?
companies are.
Here's my opinion on why on that point, because this is a great point, Joe. Is because these companies know that let's say 99%. Because if we look at all the anglers, or let's just say people who fish, of all the things that are bought and sold, let's say just sold at all Tackle Warehouse, Walmart, anywhere you can go buy fishing stuff, 99% of that is being sold to the normal run of the mill person. That I would say only a small percentage of actually give a crap about the competitive side of what we do. Like, I lean more towards the recreational side of it. Like, I enjoy a tournament. I enjoy professional fishing. Like, it's cool, but all at the same time, I could take it or leave it. If it disappeared tomorrow, I would be neither here nor there. I would
Same
go
with
down to
golf though.
but no, but the golf and racing at its core is competition. Golf is a game it has a score and a competition, whereas fishing at its core, at its original inception, was not a game. It wasn't a race. It was a way to provide for your family.
I
Like,
just think it needs
it was
to be
hunters and
structured from like literally the top down. Like, someone needs to say, this is the premier organization. If you want to be part of this, you are not putting money into MLF. You're not putting money into MPFL. Skeeter, you are only going to be with Bass or XYZ brand. It's all going to us. You can't divide it between all these pros, all these wannabe pros, all these guys that have a YouTube channel, all these guys that, I mean, you can't.
you back
I mean,
up.
I hate to say that,
up.
right?
Yeah.
But like, there's a lot of value in what we do, but at the same time, like, you have to be a lot smarter with your finances, because right now it's everywhere. Like, everyone's piecing all these thousands and thousands and hundreds of thousands of dollars between all these different things instead of putting it into a like true professional avenue.
Yeah, I mean, I think you guys are on the I think you're onto something. I mean, I never really thought this deeply into it, but being that it's not a game, like, we created the competition,
Mhm.
right? Fishing isn't inherently a competition. People used to do it to eat or die. Um, but it's not, and it wasn't a game that was invented. Like, we created these rules, and I look at racing and golf, and I mean, neither of those brands, to my knowledge, have the ability for a guy like any of the three of us have 1 million followers and have the influence that is probably as great as the greatest ever in our sport. We can do that in fishing. You cannot do that in racing and golf.
No.
Like,
Nope.
no one can, like, in all of fishing, who has the most followers? Is it Rob Turkla?
No. Probably Black Tip H.
Okay, yeah, but there are multiple guys. Like, one single guy there's no, that's like a brand. I look at Blacktip as a brand. Like, not that Lunkers TV isn't a brand, but like, I mean, he probably affects as much sales as KVD. I mean, if we're being really
More.
honest.
It's astronomically more. The only reason that KVD still gets the sales that he does, and not to discredit the man because he's the greatest to ever,
Right, right. I know you're not
fish,
saying anything
but it's
negative.
because his name is literally is on everything that Strike King makes, like literally everything.
But like, you can't do that in anything else. Like,
Well, and I think so in fishing, okay, Joe, you fish the opens and you aspire to try to. I don't know. I mean, I don't know what your aspirations are exactly, but I know that you fish the opens, and I mean, I know the opens are. I mean, the consequence of doing well in the opens is fishing professionally on the Elite Series. So you are a normal guy who loves fishing, who has dumped a bunch of time and money and just everything into the passion that you love the tournament scene, and that's what you want to do. You can do that as a normal human being. You have no exceptional abilities. I don't mean anything by that, but
right, right,
you're not bigger, you're not faster, you're not
right.
stronger. You don't have a crazy arm like Josh Allen.
Mhm.
You can't, kick a ball 650 yard, whatever it is. And
Mhm.
it's like anybody who's a fisherman can go do it. Like you put enough time, money, and effort into it. I mean, yeah, there's some natural skill. There's dudes who are natural. I call them fishy. They're just fishy. I don't know what it is. They're kind
Yeah.
of, but like at the end of the day, if you've got enough time and money, anybody can go do it. Whereas in like
Mhm.
racing, even dude, there's dudes who are really good at driving cars. I don't know
Mhm. Oh
why they're
yeah.
really good at driving cars, but they are astronomically better than everybody else at driving cars. Golf, those dudes are freaks of nature. Tiger
Yeah.
Woods is a freak of nature. John Daly is weird, is being who he is still a freak of nature when it comes to
He
the
is.
sport. Any football player, I mean, they are freaks of nature. Josh Allen, like, dude, Josh, you look at Josh Allen, you go, well, that's just a normal human. No, he's got like some freaky genetics that makes him
Yep.
be able to just missile a ball from 70 yards away right into somebody's hands. And so
Yeah.
I think in fishing, that's where it's different. Is it's like we can affect the change because we can do it and anybody else can do it. Anybody can just go do it in our world, which is weird in comparison to other sports because like name another sport where you don't have to have a freak ability. Like you're an athlete, I mean, yeah, and you can work for it, right? You can become the best quarterback of all time by just working for it. But I think like there still has to be a certain level of just genetic talent that human has.
Yeah. As if we're speaking in complete generalities, you couldn't be more right.
Mhm.
Like, it's like we're. I'm not saying there aren't exceptions to the rule, and there truly is in fishing. Like there, I mean, we could sit here and name a few exceptions that have some exceptional gifts. But
Like I'm
sport where
exceptionally
like
good at catching small fish. So there, that's my
right,
guess.
right. But like, I mean, you can like look at Polinick. I mean, they call him the prodigy for a reason. You can look at KVD when he was at his prime was cashing checks in like 87% of events, and I think he has the two longest streaks of cashing checks. It's like 29 and 17 straight, and those are the two highest streaks ever, and he has them both.
That's
But
crazy.
like, so like, there are guys that are exceptions. But speaking of generalities, the fact that the three of us can sit here and have some influence in the industry, I think speaks to your point exactly. Like, you can make it without being exceptional at anything. And I think only Rudy in the movie about Notre Dame is really the only time you'll ever see that in any other big time,
Yeah.
facet of the world.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know. I always find that interesting. Like it's this our sport, our recreation, whatever you want to call it, like the whole professional side of it has always just fascinated me
It
because
is.
I would never wanted to be a professional angler. Like I wanted to be like Jeremy Wade or like like my idol growing up was not KVD. It was, the Crocodile Hunter. Like I wanted to go adventure, but like I wanted to adventure in the way what I wanted to adventure, which is throw a kayak off the side of a bridge or take my 10 rig up some creek it's not supposed to go up and just be there for the adventure. And so it's like when I looked at the professional side of it, I was just like, it's like you stand back and you really look at it. Like when you go to ICAST, when you really stand back and you look at all that, you're just like, damn, this is weird. Like this is really weird that we're all here together in this room. And it's just like no other place do you go and it's like there's a bunch of NFL players all in a room together having I don't know, an iCast or whatever. It's just a weird thing. It's I don't know.
We say this, but like golf has their expos and like there's all these expos. So like that's not, I don't know. I think it's very interesting. There has to be a redesign because I think we all have to get together at some point.
Naked women.
Naked women. Yeah. I mean, the pelagic booth, they just need to be everywhere.
Costa and pelagic, right?
But no, like it's very weird. There's 2 or 3 or 4 main organizations that try to be like the premier organizations instead of people just saying, hey, this is our premier organization and let's build this thing as like a professional.
Well, so let's note this though. If we're going to talk about how organizations and maybe a little bit of like kind of trying to be like ours is better than yours, like we're going to talk about this. We have to talk about kind of how FLW started because FLW, the reason they went broke was because they did everything for their anglers. Like they were an amazing organization in terms of trying to promote the sport of fishing and the anglers as individuals. And like, they got in there to try, just like, what's that new golf tour now? Don't they play in like Saudi Arabia or something? What's that?
Yeah, it's I don't know even what it's called.
It's really cool. Like
the Saudi Arabian golf tour.
I watch it on TikTok, right? But like FLW started not to try to like butt heads or anything, but they really just were like, we believe that we have a business model that can take this sport to the next level. And then Major League Fishing believed they could do the same thing. It's hard to talk about like trying to get everybody to like get along when right now we truly don't actually have, there's no good ideas of really truly how to make this better. Like all of the ideas that are kind of in front of us that we've discussed now, that other organizations have tried to run with, that they've entered into this sport, nobody's come up with this like grandiose idea that is truly going to dig us out of this hole that we're frickin' in.
I have
right?
One. I have one.
Give it to us, Red.
Simple. Double down on social media.
No. We're not talking about social media, man. We're talking about having a professional.
Listen, I'm going to tell you how you do it. You accept the fact that bass fishing is a weird niche sport. You double down on social media as far as like hosting the live tournament coverage on social media. Double down on social media creation around your anglers that you want to be the premier and like stars of the sport. Grow them into their own social media personalities and have a whole social, like the WWE did with their people, like with their wrestlers, but do it all on social media. Make it super accessible to the normal human being. They don't have to go to ESPN at 5 a.m. on a Sunday morning to watch it. They can go to the live stream on YouTube and click it. That's why I like the FLW when they were still doing their thing. You could watch all their live streams on YouTube. I didn't have to go to a special app. I didn't have to go to a special place. I have to been around, jerk myself off backwards to try to get it to come up on my TV. I went to the single most prominent video hub in existence, the second biggest search engine in the world, and I clicked on it and I watched the show. Double down on social media, double down on content creation around your big pros, and then double down on mom and pop tackle shops and big box stores like the FLW used to. I got to meet every FLW pro at a Walmart one time. when I was a kid. My dad took me down there, and there was like 18 dudes at this Walmart, and I didn't know who freaking any of them were, but it was cool because they had stickers on their boats and they were professionals or whatever. And my dad was excited about it, so I was excited about it. First time I ever met Kevin Van Dam was at a Chevy dealership in Gatlinburg, Tennessee, and they have got too far away from your grassroots dynamic that is bass fishing. Like, that's us. I'm sorry, that's what we are. Like you said earlier,
Oh yeah.
we're not going to get Coca-Cola. So let's double down on the fact we're not going to get Coca-Cola, and let's bring it back to what it was. The like normal people who are watching other normal people, but at a higher level, do the thing that they love to do as well. And it's like, I think that's where, like, so that's what I mean by social media. Like, everybody in the industry could benefit from the understanding of where a weird niche, where do weird niches live? They live on YouTube. I'm sorry, they do. There's dudes that are making millions of dollars a year playing Pokemon games. Pokemon as a company doubled down on social media, and they doubled down on these Pokemon content creators that are making millions upon millions of dollars for the Nintendo company. And like, they host the whatever Pokemon card world games that someone won $1.7 million for winning a card game that hosted it all on YouTube. And that was like the premier place that you would go watch it. Like,
Dude, this comment section is hilarious, by
I
the
don't look
way.
at it. Yeah, I'm
You
sure.
know, it's great.
Yeah. But it's just like, I don't know, man. Like, I just think when you double down on just the normal person, like the normal person's like the consumption of the normal person, you got to make it for normal people. And I think when you try to not make it for normal people without the exceptional athletes, the exceptional talent, the uh, God forbid the DeMar, thing that happened the other night with that guy. Like, that's a freak weird thing, right? But like, everybody's eyes were on that because that is like the best of the best in the whole entire world going at it. And when that dude got hurt, it was like, oh my God, this star athlete who is a exception to the rule of human beings just got hurt. You don't see that in bass fishing. And so we've got to double down on that fact and accept what we are. And that's my
Yeah. Do you remember when I want to say it was like 2016 or 17 when a tornado took out Kevin Short's house and he missed Toledo Bend event?
yes. Yeah.
If that would have been a true professional sport, like, dude, that would have been like the be all and the end all. Like the professional organization would have got behind his town and like helped them rebuild. Like, we're not really a professional sport if that was like a 5-minute blurb on an ESPN episode and then it just like went to the wayside.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we need to find, like you said, some way to promote our realness,
Mm-hmm.
like, we're real humans, like, and we have to capitalize that on that. I hope in a male dominated sport that we're able to put some ego aside and find a way to capture our relatability to the normal human beings. But I don't know if in such an egotistical, testosterone driven industry, if that is an actual possibility.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think that's our two biggest obstacles that we've got to get over is that a lot of top A personalities all coming at the same problem and not giving any solutions, but a bunch of grandiose ideas. Because that's me. I mean, I'm a big idea guy. Like, I'll come up like,
Oh yeah.
we're going to build a rocket and go to the moon. It's like, well, let's think about the logistics first, Alex. Like, you know how to build a rocket. No, but damn it, we're doing it.
Yep.
And then the second thing I think is this. How do I say this? It's a weird place that we're in fishing right now too, because we've got a lot of really old people. Like, a generation of people are going to have to die before a change can be made. Sorry, it's just the way that it is. Because there's people who are running giant fishing corporations that are my papa's age. They're literally in their 70s and in their 80s, and they're making decisions based on what was cool when they were kids. And it's like, that was the newspaper. And go get a 5-cent stick of gum and my newspaper, and we're going to do. And it's like, that's not the way that it is anymore. Like, I've had conversations with companies whose owner is 75 and they don't even own a smartphone. And it's like,
And I think that's okay in worlds where they have been dealing with exceptional people for so many years. I think we need some very open-minded people, which tend to be younger. Not that all older folks aren't, but the tendency is in younger folks to kind of embrace some of the newer ideals,
So
you
what
know?
I just gathered from Joe is that all the old people should die. I got that, man. That's
I
really
knew somebody would love to twist it like that, you know? We
so.
live
I got another idea, and this came up. You said something a few minutes ago. It kind of got me thinking. You know what? You know what bass fishing also doesn't have is a regulating body. Like we aren't regulated by. So like the UFC is regulated by whatever sports commission is the town that they're in. So like when they go to New York, there's like a little bit different set of rules. When they go to Florida, there's a little bit different set of rules. But there's a regulating body of a sports commission over that activity. Same with football, same with baseball. Like they have these regulating bodies that make sure that they're not doing you know performance enhancing drugs, which I don't think we have to worry about that in fishing. But like there's like a regulation and a regulating. I mean, hell, I don't know. Joe's over here just like in the gym.
dude, you know how many but, like so just let me pause for a second. You know how many people like, there is no way every professional angler is able to go at the pace that we go. I've gotta believe when I make it to the next level, even if it's 10, 15 years from now, somebody's staying awake on uppers. Like, there's gotta be. We drive so many hours, like, it's
And the amount of
unreal.
pain
Like,
their
back-to-back
bodies through.
events, unreal. Yeah, like, people with back issues because 'cause we're in the car for 30 hours a week, like, oh, there something's anyway, back to what you were saying, though.
I mean, hey, there could be rampant drug use in the fishing industry. I believe that
I don't think it's rampant or
rampant.
we
I
hear
mean,
about
Joe is selling drugs to professional. I get it. It's cool. That's how you afford all those dial reels. It's all good. We understand, but we'll keep going from there. We're pulling that one as a soundbite too. Somebody might
Oh
pull
god.
that as a soundbite, just put it on TikTok.
Oh
But
my
no,
god.
but like I don't know. It's just weird. Like there's no governing body, and I don't know if there needs to be one, but I just find that also interesting. Like the NCAA regulates all of college sports, or like what regulates the NFL? Like I know there has to be some kind of. I know USADA does the drug testing, but then is the NFL the regulating body over this whole organization that is the NFL? But is there anybody like outside of that, like regulating, hey, you can't do sports betting if you're a professional football player, so you can't bet on yourself? Like who's that body that regulates that? Is that the government?
Association?
Players Association?
I don't
I
know.
don't know.
I don't either. And I don't know. I just,
But there are regulating bodies is the point, really.
Yes, there is. And I find that interesting too about fishing is like, I don't know a regulating body over fishing. And I think, Ben, that may play into what you're saying is why there isn't a central organization, is because there's no central regulating body that says this is the official set. And I guess there you go too. This is the official set of rules for tournament bass fishing at a professional level.
And this is one of my biggest beefs too, Rudd, is you know how many tournaments, even me, who I don't fish at the highest level. I mean, for the last 2 years, I've only fished 3 tournaments a year, like big tournaments, right? Freaking, you know how many of those tournaments take place in multiple states? And there's no regulating body. So, like, you're fishing at Champlain, you're in Vermont and New York. You can't even come up with, like, when we go to Louisiana this year to fish Toledo Bend, we'll be in Texas and Louisiana. There is the set of consistent rules. Like some of those bodies of water, you have to have both licenses. And Canada is on the St. Lawrence. Like, so you got New York and a different country, right? Like
that is so interesting to me too, because that gets into what I love, which is the conservation side of things. And it's like when I was talking to the dude from Anderson, South Carolina, when he was talking about Lake Hartwell, and I was like, so do you worry about the conservation efforts that are going on in the other state that Lake Hartwell bumps up to? Or are you on? And like, you could tell when I asked him that question, he had never even had the inkling of a fucking thought to think, what is
New York and Vermont go at it on Champlain?
That's interesting.
They go at it. they go at they will rip each other. They will it's like watching your current girlfriend argue with your ex-girlfriend because they ran into each other at a county fair, man. It is crazy.
That's
another soundbite, dude.
There it is. There it is. Joe has multiple girlfriends fighting at the county fair while selling drugs to buy dial reels. But no, dude, it's just so, I don't know. That is super interesting too, because then you got to think about like all the rules. Like kayak fishing drives me nuts because there are so many damn rule changes. Like it's constant. Like you got to, like when you sign up for a tournament, you better read the freaking rules. And I mean, read them front to back. You better read them like you've never read a set of rules before, because they will sneak some little crap in there on you because there's no standard set of rules. It's just like, this one tournament organization, hey, we don't want you to get out of your kayak, and you can get out of it and pull it over a rock pile, but if you pull it over a limb, your ass is out. And it's just like, that's weird to me. You know what I mean? And then you can throw in you're going to multiple states. I'm in Texas, I'm Louisiana, I'm in New York, I'm wherever. I'm going into Canada, completely different country. And it's like, Brandon Polnack got disqualified because he didn't break a bass rule. He broke a rule set by the state on how they want their conservation efforts done. And dude, that's like, could you imagine?
Well, and look at it. Well, and think about it like this. If we're going to go down this rabbit hole, I've been holding this one, hoping maybe we'd go off on another tangent, but no. So like if I fish a BFL on the A-rig, but if I fish a Bass Open, I can't throw the A-rig. Same body of water, same state, same like it's not it's crazy, right? We have so many different regulations to abide by and
constantly changing. Constantly changing every year.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So like when is somebody gonna step in and say need to streamline this, right? Because a catch in football is a catch in football at certain levels. They define what you can get away with, but for the most of it, a catch is a catch, right?
Possession. What is having the possession of the ball? Like it's the same,
right? And they are constantly doing efforts to try to make what goes on in Pop Warner consistent with the highest level too. No one's trying to make these things streamlined in our sport. If anything, they're trying to spread them out, right? Yeah. If I fish a bass tournament, I have an 8-foot rod length maximum. But if I fish an MLF like a BFL or a Toyota series, now I can throw a 10-footer. Like, so I can.
I didn't even know that was a rule. That's like weird. Like I would not even think that going, like if I was getting my float and fly rod out, I would never even think that. I would just show up with it.
So like a couple of years ago when I think it was the before the second year of the Bass Pro Tour started, there's a couple guys that are vested in some rod companies that were fishing the Bass Pro Tour that could benefit from that rule change. And it's a stupid rule to only have 8-footers regardless. Because it was the old rule was put into effect so you couldn't flip with cane poles on the Delta. But now with where rod technology is, it's the most antiquated and stupid rule ever. But like now we can't fish a float and fly with over an 8-foot rod. Like, dude, I have 9-foot steelhead rods that I could cast a float and fly with a mile if I wanted to. Like zing gone. And like it's just but like one organization adopted the rule change to be up to 10 foot, another didn't. Like, would somebody come in and say we're going to be the governing body, like, or would one of these organizations step up and say we're going to change our rules to align with their rules, even though we don't necessarily agree? We think it would be good for the sport.
That is, dude, that I think we just like kind of hit the core of like really where the issue may be at. Is like there is nobody, like you said, everybody is trying their best to make everything so different from each other. Like, this is why we're better. No, this is why we're better. No, this is why we're better. Because I think at the end of the day, the NFL is a business. But like these tournament organizations are truly businesses at the end of the day, because they're like trying to make money, where the NFL just makes, I mean, dude, they print money, right? And it's like
Right.
college sports just print money. But like, and so they have to have some sort of regulating body that has a consistent set of rules. Into then it goes back to what I said earlier. It's a game. It's a game with rules. What we do is not a game with rules. Like, we've made rules and we've made it a game, but it's but like, define fishing lure. Because if you say, what is a fishing lure? You ask a walleye guy, he's going to say, a little jig head with a minnow on the back. If you ask a steelhead guy, I don't know, because I don't know shit about steelhead. Joe, what's a steelhead lure? It's like, or like you ask my buddy who's a red fishing guide, what is a lure? He's going to go DOA shrimp or a live shrimp. Like, it's so defined. There's no defining definition of what is fishing, because there is no way to define fishing, because fishing is so anecdotal across the board in everybody's different experiences. That, dude, I just had like that. I love that we just had this conversation. My mind is like,
Well,
now.
Well, and the thing is like, to be really honest, and like some people might think I'm arrogant in saying this,
Totally are.
not a lot of people take the time, care enough to have the conversation, let alone then take the steps to try to do better. And when they do, they're often met with so many barriers that people don't want to work with them anyway to try to fix this. I think what happens too is, because everything is such a locker room measuring contest in the fishing industry, I don't think enough decisions that are made to be 10 or 20-year decisions. They're made to be 2 and 3 year fixes, right? Band-aids, or the Neosporin that helps the wound heal a little bit, but isn't necessarily keeping you from getting more injured later. Like, you could still get a bacterial infection. Like, I don't
He
think
knows about
we
that from his
make
drug
this.
dealing days.
Yeah, right. I don't think that a lot of decisions are made with the idea that this might suck for 10 years, but in 20 years we will be astronomically ahead of where we were 20 years ago. And I don't think decisions are rarely thought that way, except for like by Texas Parks and Wildlife. I think they're about the one of the organizations that's capable of thinking that far ahead.
Yeah, yeah, and I agree. And that's my crusade right now, is that like conservation. I'm going to the conservation side of things. It's like we are looking at 2-3 years max. Like, we're not looking at what is 10 years from now what is 20 years from now going to look like. And you're right, Texas Parks and Wildlife is like, they're going, what do we have to do now that decades from now we're still going to be winning? Whereas like most of these conservation agencies, TWA included, I think they're doing a fairly good job. And I am really pushing and being a squeaky wheel to see more changes happen. But they're still making changes. Like, what can we affect right now to make sure that we have what we need to still make money? And
Yeah, they have a lot of short and long-term goals. And Texas Parks and Wildlife runs into some of the similar barriers that the TWA does. I mean, like Texas Parks and Wildlife, so many of their bodies of water, are water sources, right? So they don't actually have jurisdiction over regulating, and trying to improve some of these waterways for the fish population. They have to deal with the people that own the water, the water authorities, and that's the same stuff that TWA. I think TWA runs into it more. I think they have more barriers than
I mean, the
Texas.
federal government owns most of the waterways. I mean, like literally every waterway that I can think around me that isn't a creek or a tributary is owned by the federal government, because it's the TVA. I mean, like,
Yeah,
and then again, there you go. That's another weird, like, who in the hell regulates that? You know what I mean? Because like, I don't want to get the federal government involved in anything that I've got going on. And it's like they come, and I wonder. Okay, I got a rabbit hole. I wonder if nobody is recognizing the, how do I say this? So it's like, okay, the TVA.
Okay.
TVA is the federal government. I don't care what anybody says. Federal government is out to get theirs. You do anything, federal government's going, where's my piece?
Oh yeah.
I wonder if because bass fishing as a tournament, like as a tournament thing that makes money and is whatever. I wonder if nobody's noticed because it's not big enough to make a big enough wave with the federal government that they've not stepped in and gone, whoa, if you're going to have a tournament on the TVA, we're going to need 25% of your revenue as a blah, 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 blah. Like, I wonder if nobody, that's what I'm saying. Like, that's what I'm saying. And it's like, I wonder if almost sounding the alarm a little too much then brings in that, like, where the federal government literally steps in and goes, we need 25% of all your revenue because you're using our body of water, and comes up with, all these.
Well, so but then I think they have a lot of tree-hugging fishermen like myself that say, "Oh, you know what? Like, you need to cure X, Y, and Z then, because we are so aware of so many things that they need to step in." Like, okay, so here's a good example of where if they tried to do this where we live, um, we have this massive like grievance against the federal government who hasn't stepped in. So the Conowingo Dam is the bottom of the Susquehanna River, right? Where Nolan Minor won that tournament.
Mhm.
Okay, so the Conowingo Dam, it's like 100 feet tall or whatever, has like 15 gates on it. It dumps hundreds of thousands of cubic feet of water per second into the Chesapeake Bay. And, we have all these rivers also that flow into the upper bay and, flow down to Baltimore.
Mhm.
Well, the at the mouth of the dam itself should be like 109 feet deep. I think at the mouth it's like 19 feet deep or something. There's like almost 90 feet of phosphorus and sediment sitting at the mouth of the dam. Like, it should be way deeper. It's all this dead, decayed plant matter, garbage,
Mm.
everything that's built up over the years that dam has been there. It's all of New York and Pennsylvania's garbage, right? Whether it be organic garbage or garbage, human waste,
Mm.
right? And then at the mouth where it all dumps in, for miles and miles, it used to be super fertile crabbing grounds, right? Super fertile, like Maryland crabs, right? Maryland's famous for crab cakes and football, right? That's what Maryland does, right?
I like how you talk out of the side of your mouth when you do that. That's what Maryland does.
Right? I was actually watching Wedding Crashers before this came on, so
Oh.
it was fresh in my mind. But like, they said, like, Maryland has said, well, we can't fix it. It's Pennsylvania should be the one fixing it because it's flowing out of Pennsylvania. And Pennsylvania said, the water originates at Oswego Lake in New York. And New York should be the ones to pay to fix the dam, right? And really, like, if it flows through that many states, in your opinion, as a taxpayer and as a U.S. citizen, isn't things that are multi-state, aren't those usually things that are governed by the federal government when multiple states are involved? And you think, so by that logic, you'd think, oh, the federal government should get involved and fix this problem so we can go back to having fertile crab fishing grounds, so that all of this stuff that makes its way through the dam now all needs to be cleaned up, because all of that is destroying, and it's getting closer and closer to Baltimore. All of that stuff north of Baltimore is now getting closer and closer to ruining the crab grounds, and in a certain amount of years, you're not going to be able to crab in Baltimore Harbor anymore. Like, but whose job is it to fix that? Like, don't come after my fishing on these waterways, or we're going to come after you, who need to be taking care of these fisheries better.
I love that. I love that.
They've left it to the states, and if they want to leave that to the states, leave the states to make their money, because they somehow have to figure out how to clean up this mess too.
Dude, that's legit. I mean, that's legit. That is not an issue that I have to deal with here in Tennessee, but that is an issue that's like,
but you guys have to clean up the Asian carp population,
exactly,
right?
exactly.
Wouldn't you be having, like, you could tell the exact same story I just told, and if the federal government wants to come in and take a cut of what these cities are making for hosting these tournaments, then you know what? They need to be paying for maintaining these fisheries and these bodies of water too. And they're not doing that. That's up to the states
Yep.
right now.
And on the flip side of that, these cities should be also then saying what you're saying. These cities should be reinvesting back into the fisheries that they're using as pawn chips to bring in these tournament organizations to then have 52 other subsequent tournaments after that, of people who just want to come play on the same field that the best of the best played on. Dude, that's, oh man, like you got me really thinking now. Like we're an hour and 24 minutes into this and we ain't got time for this conversation. Like that
I
is,
know.
dude, that's legit. Like that is,
Dude,
I really
the kind
love
of campfire conversations that I would stay up till 4 a.m,
Oh,
like passionately, not even realize time is going by.
Oh, dude, that's one, and that's me too. Like when you want to really get me going, conservation is my thing. I could literally go, I could go all day, all night on that. But that is very interesting because I've never thought about it kind of in that context. And you're right. You know, and you want to know what's crazy is just even more on that topic, the TVA specifically. Okay, so we think TVA, you think TVA, you probably think Gunnersville, Chickamauga, Pickwick, your TVA
Mhm.
systems. Okay, what a lot of people don't realize is that your big power producing dams and you know a lot of these Highland Reservoir lakes are TVA lakes as well. Douglas, Cherokee, Norris, you know, these are giant reservoirs. Well, the one way that they help to number one produce power, that number two regulate flooding during the winter is they pull those lakes down. So like right now,
Mhm.
Norris is down 25.
Big drawdown.
Yeah, huge drawdown, 25, 35 feet. Okay, so we had this record-breaking cold move through the Tennessee Valley the other day. They literally had to have rolling blackouts because they said they couldn't produce enough power. Okay, how I am literally 10 minutes from Norris Dam. I am 15 minutes, 25 minutes from Mountain Hill Dam. I am like right here. We got a coal fire plant. And then if you go,
I was gonna say there can't be a coal fire plant that far away.
yeah, you go an hour and a half down the road, you have Sequoia Nuclear Plant, which is one of the biggest nuclear plants in all of the South. Okay, so number one, if you're going to jerk these lakes down and you're going to do whatever willy nilly you want to these lakes and not even think about the conservation of the fishery while doing
Mhm.
it, because what they'll do is they'll wait till April, May, water hits 60 degrees, pristine, perfect, and they'll jerk that bitch right down. And literally, I've seen bass beds that were in the water completely out of the water. I've seen
Mhm.
whole
Oh
bass
yeah,
spawns ruined by a drawdown where
I'm
we have
sure.
you know, rain move in. And then you're going to tell me you're drawing these lakes down, you're doing all this regulating, but then you can't produce power on the back end when we have cold weather. Like you guys are doing fine. You have record breaking cold weather. It's cold up there where y'all live all the time. And y'all don't have rolling blackouts. Like, so
No.
that's a whole that I think that is an even greater example of that's why we don't want anybody to get involved because it's just going to be a giant debacle of a shit show at the end of the day in most cases, unless guess who has to have a seat at the table? Guess who? Us as anglers, and we're not having that because we're going back to my original statement. We're weird, we're obscure, we're niche, and so they're not paying attention to us because guess what? We don't produce enough dollars at the end of the day to be heard. But when the University of Tennessee has a football game, they raise loud enough so all the Tennessee, the Vol Navy can get to the stadium and have their big Vol Navy, you know, tailgating on all their giant $1 million boats. Like
I'll
how
tell you what though,
crazy is that?
what truly makes my froth peak though is a party on a boat, bro.
Party on a boat.
Like,
Get down on a party on a boat. Well, I got a party on a boat for you. Ever want to come down here Saturday? I'll find some rich guy with a big old boat. You and him can get on there and just party down. All I need is a go Vols. Little VOLS, baby.
dude, our culture has gotten so weird, hasn't it?
Oh, it's awful. I mean, you know, like
I
it's
think it's awesome and awful and one scary nightmare all at the same time.
we are one scary nightmare away from it all just going to hell too.
I mean, like, is it, but like, we can't have the conversation we just had without saying, like, how far are we truly away from like absolutely like apocalyptic events?
hmm
Like,
hmm
I don't think I'm like totally like I'm not like
Okay.
a big conspiracy guy, but I kind of think that like we kind of did have a little bit of an ugly conversation there.
Oh yeah. I mean, we did, and I mean, and those are the conversations that I want to have. I mean, like, I think that's one thing I've always wanted to do with my platform is like we have fun. I say stupid shit, like we joke around, but at the end of the day, like I do want to have hard conversations and crazy conversations because it's like no, because like what you said, I feel like nobody else is talking about it. Like I feel like we're the like only people who like actually sit down and think about things like that. And maybe we have the blessing of having the time to think about things like that. But Ben, I know you do too. You have a full time job and kids, but I just feel like we are like a vocal minority of people who are actually thinking about the problems like that. You know what I mean?
It's yeah. It I don't know why more of these I think so many people's desire to be relevant takes them away from the ability to see the bigger picture.
Mm.
Um, you know, I think a lot of people have no idea how small this industry is.
Tiny, tiny.
And they're chasing the glory and they want to be bigger than they really are. And
Mhm.
it I mean, I it's hard to keep everything in perspective all the time. Like everybody wants to be relevant, you know, especially Americans. Like we've kind of created this culture and you know, like you ever heard Rogan do that? Hard times create
Yep.
hard men create you know, like
Good
I,
times create weak men create
yeah,
hard times. Yeah.
we're in this tough lull in society, and we've created this ourselves. You know, I hope that if American ideals shift like Rogan suggests that they will, hopefully men that are governing this industry, or gosh, hopefully some women come in and help balance out the men so that there can be a shift, because we're clearly running this train into the ground, you know?
We're just running it straight into the abyss. It will be no longer if we just keep going down this. Dude, you're right though. I think the biggest thing right now, and I always tell people that are around me, if I ever say anything or do anything that makes me seem like I'm too big for my own head, knock me down, because that's never been my intention. Like, you know, like
Right.
I started this because I loved it. I do it because I love it, and I'll continue to do it because I love it. But you're right that there's so many people who want to be a so much bigger deal than they are. And I feel like that's where the industry went. I feel like the industry exploded in the past couple of years in
Well,
pop.
it was when we gave away a $500,000 or $1 million to Scott Suggs when he won the Forest Wood Cup. That was the big downslide.
I didn't even know he won that much money. That's a lot of
It
money.
it was like two that I forget what year it is, but when Scott Suggs won the first $1 million tournament, it was all downhill from there. The
And
economy was so good. Bass fishing was starting to prosper. The Bassmasters, as the elite series, not the top 100 or whatever, had been in play for a few years. Bass fishing was at its peak, and like it was really frothing. And
I love frothing. I got to start using that.
FLW,
I'm frothing over that one.
yeah, right, right. But that it was all downhill from there. KVD was larger than life then. But the economy was doing so well, that was the time that, like, and a lot of people don't realize that about fishing history, but when we gave away $1 million, everything changed. And now all of a sudden, and because we were on this trend anyway as Americans, right? Like,
It was almost this frivolous, unrealistic expectation to live up to that we tried and tried and tried. And guess what? Like I said earlier, we have to accept our weirdness. We have to accept our place in the world. Like there's just certain people like, and I know there's going to be people who be like, no, you can't think like that. You got to think like. I seen a quote today. This was great. It made my dad giggle while we were sitting in the hospital waiting for his procedure to get done. I said, "There's there's a lot of bodies laying on Mount Everest of people who are really enthusiastic. So calm down just a little bit." I mean, dude, that is where we're at
oh,
with fishing industry right now is listen, there's a lot of dead bodies laying on Everest for really enthusiastic people. So let's calm
I
down.
just
Like,
unplugged my light. Hold on.
I love it. I love that I made you laugh so hard that you unplugged your light. But I mean, dude,
Oh yeah.
that is for real where we're at. And I actually had this conversation with several people. I was kind of talking, just, we were talking before we got on here, like contracts and everything. So I've been doing a lot of talking the past couple of weeks. And I told somebody, I said, I really believe the fishing industry got really, really frivolous. And see, I don't have the perspective of the $1 million thing, because I didn't even know that happened. And maybe that's because like you keep up with that more, but I'm gonna have to look at that and kind of see that. But it's like I've seen the downslide. I like, in my weird like perception, and maybe it's life, maybe it's not actually what's happening. But my weird perception was like the last good year of tournament bass fishing, and like what felt like good, like, like when everything was hitting all cylinders, was the last year that Jordan Lee won the Classic. And then after that, it felt like it just all fell apart. But then we got into 2020, and the fishing industry exploded again because of all these people coming into it and wanting to get into it. And there's so much money being dumped in. There's so much money being spent. And it was almost like we got too big for our own shoes. It was so frivolous and huge that now we're starting to realize, hey, guess what? It's shrinking back down to what is normal. And what is normal is we're kind of weird and obscure. Like,
Well, I mean, Rudd, before you ever had a sponsor, did you think that like companies were giving away more money than you realize now?
oh, I had no idea.
But we knew people were making pretty good livings, right?
I thought, to be honest with you, I didn't understand it. And so I thought they were like professional athletes where they just got paid to show up because they were who they were. And like now that I realize how the industry actually works, it's like, oh, okay, this is very weird.
Well, there was a time where companies were giving away money kind of frivolously. I don't want to say like frivolously, but like there was a time where there was a lot more money being handed out. I don't think bass fishing will ever see that money again.
Mm-hmm.
Like never. I mean, the economy is going to have to skyrocket.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, like, not to get into this weird thing, but like, so it wasn't until about like 5 years ago when I decided this is what I wanted to do eventually,
Mm-hmm.
where I started paying attention to like truly who I was voting for president. And like, I realized that like, I realized that like, when I started caring about like who I was voting for, because you want to know who I vote for? Whoever is going to make our economy stronger. You want to know why? Because when our economy is strong, people spend more money on tackle. When people spend more money on tackle, there's more money that can be put back into marketing, which means there's more contracts available for me and all of my friends, which means that all of us can hang out around the campfire and talk on a podcast and have these stupid conversations.
Yep.
And while we're promoting these brands that we work for, and there's more for you, me, and the next guy. And like, these things are so stinking important, and like there was a time where our economy was absolutely freaking booming.
Mm-hmm.
And our, like, I'm not saying this is related to our president, but I might be a little. Our economy, I think a lot of it's COVID too, and the commerce and trade that was hugely affected by COVID-19, whether you believe in it or not, or have conspiracy theories. It is what we're looking at. And our economy isn't in the same place that it was in 2019 prior to all of this. And it's weird to see how much money was available 10 years ago compared to where we're at now. And a lot of that is kind of indicative of where we're at as a country.
Mm-hmm.
But the point is there's just things were different. There's a big shift. We are sliding.
Mm-hmm.
Sliding.
Mm-hmm.
But
and there's a big shift in the way everything is going. Every industry is everything and everything. Like, dude, I'm going to toot our horn because that is what I do. I am our own cheerleader in our world of social media. We're changing the world.
100%.
Before we got in here, we were talking. Everybody needs to go watch the documentary Eat the Rich and realize that a bunch of dudes on Reddit almost took down the entire US economy because they almost took down an entire hedge fund because they were on Reddit saying to buy GameStop stock. They are investigating Twitter because Twitter can literally influence elections of the world's most powerful country.
Oh, dude, watch Homeland.
Yes, exactly. And I mean,
Same
like,
stuff.
dude, it's people like
Information warfare.
and then so you got the big scary thing, right? But then like on the simple part, there's a bunch of TikTokers that I've seen, a couple that I follow. I really like movies. I love to go to the movies. I love movies. Like I'm a big, like movie buff. These TikTokers have gone from TikTok to now they show up on the big screen before the show. You know, like the little pre-show that they have, and they're like, "Hey, welcome back," blah blah blah. Those dudes were on TikTok. Now they're still on TikTok with millions upon tens of millions of followers, but they're also now doing the pre-show for the movies. Then they started showing up on the red carpet and getting priority over e-news and getting priority over these big news industries because they get more eyes. And it's like the whole world is shifting away from this like legacy media, this, people watch the news. People don't go to the news anymore. They go to Joe Rogan. They go to Breaking Points with Crystal and Sagar. Like I've not literally, this is not a joke, y'all. I have not watched the news in 5 years. No shit.
Would you?
I don't. And like if I want news, I listen to Breaking Points with Crystal and Sagar. And it's yes, or you go to your phone and you search it. And it's like, so I think that's another, like not only in our industry, but like in the world, the whole world, like you said, we're in a weird ass place, bro. Like weird. And like, where do we go from here? I don't know, man. I mean, I guess we just live it out and see what happens.
There's so many, and just from that alone, there's so many more rabbit holes that we can go under. Talking about the FCC, talking about news, and talking about like information sharing of all kind.
Crazy, dude. Ben, you've been sitting down there. When Ben gets quiet like this, I worry because I know he's about to say something really intelligent and challenge every idea that I have.
No, I'm just listening. I'm more of a fly on the wall tonight, just kind of listening and I mean I have different opinions on a couple things, but at the same time I agree for the most part. I just think we're in a weird spot right now. Like you start to look at um, where we were at in 2006, 7, 8 as a sport of bass fishing, right? You had these teams and companies investing in bass fishing that got really burned. Chevy, the National Guard was like one of the biggest sponsors of the FLW. You had Walmart, you had Kellogg,
I
you
mean,
had all
Three
the
Doors
big
Down
name
wrote a whole
brands.
song for the National Guard that they played at a weigh-in here in Knoxville before the guys walked out on stage. Like I remember that clearly, like because it was like a big deal.
Yeah, like you had all this money coming into the sport and they got burned by organizations that weren't set up financially intelligently, and they'll never be back to the sport of bass fishing until we finally get our stuff together. Like, but now you're at a weird time where you don't have 50 years behind you with a real organization, which the NFL has, which the NHL has. And they're finally coming into like a prime when social media is finally booming, that you can actually make money as an organization. So now all this money from these organizations is going towards other opportunities, social media influencers, marketing towards people through social media. It's not going to the sport of bass fishing because bass fishing isn't relevant as a professional sport. So it just will never come back to bass fishing as we knew it in 2008. Like it just won't happen unless something revolutionary changes.
And I think that the relevancy
Super valid.
and I think the relevancy of fishing comes through social media. I think that's the only reason that it's relevant, and in every form that it comes in, whether it be tournament, whether it be guiding, whether it be salt, whether it be fresh, whether it be crabbing, because crabbing is a type of fishing. Like, like I can promise you there's some dude on YouTube that none of us have ever heard of. It probably has 500,000 subscribers that goes crabbing, and like people really love his crabbing videos. Like, and
We're at a point too.
out of his mouth.
I was more excited watching the Bassmaster Opens and looking at the final standings in the Bassmaster Opens than I was MLF, where the top guys are fishing. Like that's really indication that the sport of bass fishing at the most high professional level is really messed up when a AAA league is more interesting than what is considered a professional tier bass fishing organization. Like, there needs to be some reorganization if you really want the sport of tournament bass fishing to be relevant. Because when you have guys that can literally take down ICAST, Googans just didn't show up to ICAST and had people like coming to hotel rooms and like big conference rooms. Like, that's really indicative of where the sport is going.
That's indicative of the world.
Like, it's just incredible. You can just take down the biggest event in, well, it's not bass fishing. I know it's a whole sport fishing show, but you can take down like a bunch of the people that would have come to the bass fishing part of ICAST and just pull them out and drive them via social media. Because unfortunately, all these organizations are missing the mark. We're still missing the mark if we want to be a tournament bass fishing organization.
Well, to circle some of this back to kind of where this, conversation began, I think this goes along with what Rut said, but it's hugely in line with what you're saying right now. I think we need to see the tournament organizations give credence to some of the influencers that are just content creators, and we have to all work together. And I don't know if we're ever gonna see tournament organization or a governing body get behind Alex Rudd Fishing.
So I went to Major League Fishing literally with Alex. I sent it to you.
He did
full-blown plans of these like ways you can grow the sport of bass fishing using social media influencers to drive people to Major League. I've had 5 or 6 phone calls with a guy named Michael Malone, I believe, about how to do this, and he said, "Yeah, they don't want to do it because they don't believe that the power of social media is enough to draw the eyes." Like, you think we could get you guys all to bring your own boats up here, and we get like 5 cameras for you guys to film your own social media content? I'm like, no, why would you not? Anyways, it's a different story, but like, they're just missing it, man. They're just straight missing the mark.
Logan,
dude, why are they not?
Go ahead. No, you go ahead.
I could go to Bassmaster with the same idea. I'm like that close.
I don't understand like why they don't have Alex Rudd or why they don't have an influencer. Like, why aren't these guys being hired as announcers right now? Because you know how much freaking traffic they would draw.
Mm-hmm.
Like, why are we not saying who are the top 100 influencers in the bass fishing industry right now that are not fishing this tournament? How do I get their how do I get their following? We need to be paying this guy to host this event. He needs to be hosting live for 4 hours.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's all fine and good that when Lee Livesey or Brandon Polinick don't make day 4, that they come and sit at the booth for 3 hours during live. But you know what? Their fans are watching the sport anyway. Mm-hmm. You need to continue to try to grow. And right now, like Rudd said in the beginning, dude, there are guys out there that have hundreds of thousands of followers, some in the millions. Why are we not hiring them? I mean, you can't pay them $10,000 for the weekend to host this event for 4 8-hour days. It's 4 8-hour days. We can't hire them for that.
And what's even crazier is that what they don't realize is how many eyes. I'm going to say myself, because like most of my audience doesn't care about tournament fishing.
If you were there, though,
mine don't
care. They would watch if I was there, because they would just come to say, "Oh, like Alex is interested in this thing." Like, the only way that tournament fishing stays has any relativity on my podcast is just because I find interest in how weird it is, and so I like to like show its weirdness and just like poke holes in it, and then just step back and watch. Like, it's weird.
If this wasn't on an FCC regulated broadcast, if this was on YouTube and you hosted this, you could be your brand of weirdness on that social media platform that is live.
And what did I say earlier? What do you need to double down into? Social media. Because when you can step away from the regulation of like, we have to be PC, we have to do this. You want to know why Joe Rogan is so fucking successful. There, I said it. There, I said a bad word on my thing. That is why he's successful, is because he can say whatever he wants to. If he wants to have some dude who's a conspiracy theorist about coronavirus and another dude who's a conspiracy theorist about, I don't know what else, all these people he has on, he does it. Like this week alone on Joe Rogan, I've listened to Portnoy, a dude who owns this place called the Bone Farm where he digs up, like mammoths and crap. And then I listened to a biologist about like coronavirus for like 3 hours, all on Joe Rogan. And like, that's what I mean about like double down on social media is if a organization, a tournament organization will double down on like embracing the weirdness, letting go of this rigid set of like, we have to fit in this little box and letting us just go gloves off. It's like Snoop Dogg announcing UFC fights. It's the funniest. It's Joe Rogan announcing UFC fights. That's why UFC is so successful. You pay a pay-per-view amount of money to hear Joe Rogan be able to say whatever he wants to. The fighters get up there and say whatever they want to, and they beat the dog shit out of each other. And they can say we beat the dog shit out of each other. You got to take the gloves off of it to make it. That's why UFC is, I think, is relative. It's why it's like the fastest growing sport right now is because it isn't put into a nice box with a bow on top. It is rough. It's tough. It's its own weird corner of sport, and people love it. My wife, let me tell you something. I love UFC. My wife is weird about that shit. Okay, she yells, she screams, she gets into it, and she doesn't get into any other sport. And I can promise you, it's because it's the personalities, it's what they say, it's the show, it's the grandiose of all that. And the only reason it has all that is because they have embraced what they are. They are embracing it 100% and they're running with it.
I mean, like Bass is, how long it's taken Fighter to be okay smoking a cigarette? Like, dude, he had to release it in a YouTube video 5 years ago. And then he slowly has had to like ease the general public into the fact that he smokes, which like freaking 12% of Americans do. But I'm just saying, like, it's this weird, like,
it's a weird,
has tried to cram themselves into what the rest of the freaking public is doing. And they don't just embrace who they are.
Well, you have Scott Martin and Brian Thrift, chain smokers, who you've never seen or very rarely smoke on live.
I didn't know.
I mean, chain smokers, dude. Brian Thrift
hot take
is like, don't
smoking
like
one lot,
he's smoking, and you'll see like the camera cut to him, and you'll just see him drop a cigarette and go to fish because they can't have him on live smoking a cigarette. Or he'll be like, "Hey guys, I gotta pee," so like he just lights up a cigarette and they take the camera off him. But like,
dude, fighters leading that St. Clair event, and he didn't like. If that was a fun day of fishing for Fighter, he would have dragged 30 darts that day. But but finally he had to be like, all right, dude. He's like, Jake, or I forget who was filming for him that day. He's like, dude, you gotta set the camera down. I need a dart break. Like, and that's when I started calling him darts. I'm like, because I thought it was hilarious when Fighter said it, but like, he had to literally walk on eggshells for years, like, and slowly had to ease people into understanding
smoking tobacco. Over smoking tobacco, like he's literally just smoking a cigarette. Like the fact that you just said that he's had to walk people into it for years, as if though you're saying he is freebasing heroin on the front of his boat. Cigarette. You go to the convenience store and you buy them for $6 a pack or however much they are. Like I smoked a cigar on a podcast that I did with Bailey, sitting with a bunch of pros. Like, so you're
and we had Evan Williams bourbon slapped on the side of boats for how many years? But smoking, no
smoking. Like alcoholism is fine.
Yeah, right? Like it just goes to show like how weird this industry has gotten, and it's like they have no identity. Like they won't just embrace the identity that we all know that bass fishermen truly have. Like there is a core identity to all of us, right? We don't sleep enough. We care so much about what we're doing. We're hugely passionate, aka we're all freaking eccentric, right?
Yep.
So just embrace it. Like, let's stop trying to like blend us into this like muted, watered down, like disgusting version of like productive members of society. Like, let's just be who we are. And the best way to do it is let's just triple down on frickin' like let's just somebody write like if every single fisherman in the US wrote a letter to Elon Musk, like, dude, like buy this sport,
Yeah.
us over, save our fishing, like, and just we all just said we'll all bow down to you, like so we just need some rich like Arab prince or Elon Musk like guy to like just pull us out of the toilet and save this thing. Like, let us be free, you know? Free the fishermen.
Okay, I won't keep us too long on this one, but the desire of Bass right now to build characters, which they lost with the expansion to MLF, is incredible to me. Like, they're finally starting to build their characters back.
It's almost scripted.
Bass is.
Like, it's scripted. Like,
they know and they have an idea. I guarantee they have board meetings on this.
Absolutely.
That's why you have your Zaldane and your Tox and your Jakobsens and your Palinux, and like, you have the guys. And I hate to say this, but you have your Japanese Intaku, you have your Australian Dream in Jakobsen, you have the dirty redneck in Matt Robertson. You have like, I don't even know what Seth Fighter is, but you have Fighter. Like, you just have these characters that
he's the nihilist, dude. He's the nihilist from the Big Lebowski, dude. That's what he is. He's a long-haired nihilist.
Like, they are building these people, and the guys that aren't entertaining but are also good anglers just aren't going to get the TV time. Like, I hate to be that way.
Lou Palmer is not going to get the TV time, dude. He's too clean cut, right? He's just. Yeah. He's not making waves in any way. Luke Palmer is not going to be a brand that Bass gets behind until he wins 3 tournaments, you know? But Lee Livesey has got that deep voice and like shooting guns and drinking Busch Light or whatever beer company's going to pay him. They will get behind his ass.
Dude, his voice, I have to say, I watched him in a video the other day. I think his voice is getting worse. Like, I turned it on and I was expecting the Lee Livesey voice, but I go in there and it's I was like, oh shit. I was like, that boy,
dude, I love him. I've met him twice. Every time, dude, he's a ball of laughs, bro. Like, he's great, dude.
Yeah, no, it's, dude, y'all are so right. Ben, you're right. Like, and it is funny to me. Like, they've got some of them too so bought in on their character, like that. Like, I've said this before. Like, they'll get on other podcasts and like say things that are so charactery. Like, it almost feels like it's the Rock up there. Like, I'm not talking about no, chocolate pie. I'm talking about poontang pie. And it's like they're like almost like so bought into their character.
You sent me one. Okay. And like, I get it might be Jakobsen's real personality.
Is that how you say his last name?
I don't know.
Jakobsen.
It's Jakobsen, but
whatever it is. Anyways, he's like, I'm the American dream. And like, that's his only thing that you ever hear him talk about is like his dream to get here. And I'm sure it is probably like, if you made that accomplishment and it is your dream to be a Bassmaster Elite Series, it's your story. But at the same time, like, my God, that's his, like.
Dude, have you ever heard him tell the story? No. I cried. Dude,
really?
No, I'm not lying. I cry. I really did. I'm kind of a crier though, guys.
I am too.
Like,
yeah.
He talks so the US well, you guys might not have it. Do you guys know how the US Open works?
Is that the one they have on out on in the
West?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Out west. So when Jakobsen came over here, he got second as a non-boater, but every day that you fish, your total that you catch with your boater is your total. So the boater and co-angler both contribute to this bag. And like, if your bag is 20 pounds, your boater had 20 pounds for the day and your co-angler had 20 pounds for the day. And even though your partners shuffle, like you get a different boater the next day, that's the total you're moving on with. So you're a team while you're in the boat, but you also move on with that total. So when he got second, one of the big things was he built a relationship with Fred. And when he ran out of money, after he sold his boat and like had been in our country for a while, had to battle to keep his visa, he went to watch a Bassmaster event, and it was on his way like to the airport to leave, and he saw Fred's wife who like had befriended the hell out of him, that Fred and his wife had. And like she just like, when he told her that he was leaving, they had like a really emotional moment, and he's telling the story, dude, and I'm like freaking sob. And I've sobbed twice. I've heard him tell the story two different ways on two different occasions, and I'm like tearing up like a big sissy. It is his story, but to your point, there are guys that are caricatures of themselves for the Bass brand.
I mean, like, dude, he's a great example of somebody who like went from nothing to something. But like, there's certain people who are everything. I
mean, dude, he spent more money on lawyers to stay in this country than like any human being should have to. Like astronomical amounts of litigation.
That is the American dream, right? Come on,
oh yeah,
do the shit out of somebody. but there's just certain characters who they come from everything, right? Like they it's not anything special, but you still got to build a character because it's what Vince McMahon did. I mean, like Vince McMahon is a great example of like, dude, if it wasn't for Vince McMahon, professional wrestling wouldn't be anything that it is. And it's a building of characters. And it's not just Vince McMahon's building of characters, also the individual wrestlers built characters like Stone Cold Steve Austin. Like I watched that documentary series that they did. Dude, it's fascinating to hear how he like, you know, he shaved his head one day and like cut into a handlebar mustache and then just walked in there and he was Stone Cold. You know what I mean? And, you know, Austin 316 says, I'm going to whip your ass. Like, it's like, dude, like, yeah, they're building that, but it's like, I just don't, it's like weird to see fishermen do that. And I think it's weird to see fishermen do that because they can't do it like what I was saying earlier. Like you can't let the reins off of them to have, you know, Austin 316 walk up on stage, you know, Austin 316 says, I'm going to catch the shit out of them fish.
But dude, I would watch it.
I would watch it. I would watch it a hell of a lot more.
Well, here's the thing is like, if we are able to go to some social media platform, I think we're going to see more people who are truly like that. It's not really a character. It's maybe just a version of themselves they've muted for the public eye. And now they're like, screw it. I don't have to care anymore. Like I can be whoever I want to be. Like, I think we're going to see more of that. Dude, I'm not going to lie. Like
maybe my frustration lies in the fact that like, so this is, what is it? It's, you know, ignorance is bliss, right? Before I got into the fishing industry and I knew some of these dudes and I knew their true personalities and I knew how fun they were. And it's like, they're fun and they're awesome to be around and they crack jokes and it's, you know, they drink beer, they smoke cigars with you around a fire. Like they'll be real with you. And it's like, and then I bring them onto a podcast or you get them out into the public and it's like, I got to do this certain thing. And I'm over here just doing whatever I want to do. I'm just like, whatever I want to do. It's like, I can fart, I can burp, I can say shit. Like it doesn't matter because it's me and I've built this and this is what this is. And you can't take this away from me. Whereas they can. And maybe it's like almost discouraging even more so because I do see these dudes who are really fun individuals who can't be themselves because they're boxed into this little weird, can't smoke cigarettes.
And some of it is the weird audience that we have as social media influencers, right? They don't have that as professionals unless they have a social media platform. Like they're held to different standards, I think, even still.
FCC standards.
Yeah.
Interesting.
They're governed by the Federal Communications Committee or whatever it's the FCC stands for. Like, dude, our analytics that we submit to brands for partnership agreements every year, mine doesn't include any TV time. I sure know that. Like, we're held to, we get to be more of our true selves, even though we represent brands and, you know, like we don't want people to have to earmuff it every time we talk. Like my boat ramp language is a little more foul than I've used tonight, but like truly, like those guys, they have. Oh, I feel bad for them to a point. Like, dude, I'm happy individual being a content creator and as an influencer. Some of those guys have to be stressed, like
Miserable. Yeah.
they have to be miserable. They have to be a completely different version of themselves basically every day.
Mm-hmm. Got to turn the character on. They got to truly turn the character on. Like that's truly the character.
But it's not even a character. It's like just the most strict version of yourself all the time.
Like a politician. It's like a politician that gets up there and it's just like here's what it is. I can look at a politician and you tell me whether they're a Democrat or Republican, and I can almost guarantee you what they're going to say when they're asked a question. You give me a set of professional anglers, and I can almost guarantee you exactly what they're going to say because it's the same generic bullcrap every single time, and it gets so annoying to the point where you just want to scream. Like the commentating, even on like when Bassmaster's on, it gets to the point where I'm just like, shut up. Like it is so generic and just like, I know what you're going to say. And then they'll say stupid shit too. Like, well, I tell you what, Tommy, the point here today is one of these guys is going to have to catch bigger fish than somebody else.
It's the truth. That's all there's left to say because
because
it's the same broadcast after broadcast after broadcast because they're held to these strict standards of being watered down.
Crazy. All right. One thing before we go, because this has been real. I mean, we're 2 hours into this thing. It's the longest one in a while. Joe,
we got to do this again, bro.
Yeah, dude, we do. Like you're coming on a lot from now on because, dude, you're a real one. Like I like this. I like this a whole lot, especially to stick with me for 2 hours. Did you know who was that dude who used to fish the Bassmaster who had like the earrings and the long hair and tattoos?
Jason Quinn.
Did you know that he sued Bernie Sanders because Bernie Sanders used a video of him running down the lake as a depiction of a drug cartel?
I think I vaguely heard, not that it was I did not know it was Quinn, but I knew somebody sued Bernie Sanders for taking a helicopter video and using that inappropriately. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I just come to my mind when we were thinking about all this because that guy stood out. That's funny. Of all my memories of like professional fishing, there's like 2 or 3 things that stand out. That dude, I didn't even know his name, but it was that dude just because of counterculture. The first time I saw Mike Iaconelli scream at a fish, that was crazy. And then this is a weird one. And I've told Hunter this to his face. The first time I saw Hunter Shyrock, because he had a flat bill on and looked like a motocross dude and was like not just a fat 40-year-old white guy on the front of a boat. Those are like the 3 distinct things I remember in fishing that I was like, huh, okay. That's different. But there you go.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny too. Like the thing that sticks in my mind is like how everybody seems like a different size when you see them on TV, like I didn't realize KVD is not 6'3", like I did because he looks larger than life on television. I didn't realize Polnick's actually 5'3", like because he seems a lot bigger than that. Like it's weird. Like everybody in fishing, like dude, fighters like not that tall. Like you think everybody when you see them on the front deck on live is like average size. Like everybody looks 5'10", except for like Bobby Lane. But like, dude, they come in all shapes and sizes, man. Like that's what sticks in my head.
Hey, listen, I still will say Jimmy Houston, even though he is not 10 foot tall, that man walks around 10 foot tall. So I'm just putting that out there. Being on the boat with him for the first time, I literally was intimidated. So I got to put that out there.
Dude, his manhood enters the room about 10 feet before him. So
no joke. A swinging son. All right. He won't say that about himself, but I love Jimmy and I'll say it for him. So
Yep.
Well, boys, for real. Hey, like Joe, you've been real, dude. Like this is awesome. Thank you for sticking with us for 2 hours. Ben, I always love you always have the most elegant input. Like you don't say much, but when you do, it's always good. So I'm glad.
Yeah, it's always better when I'm just in the background and just can like occasionally input stuff because otherwise I get on weird stuff. So
Yeah, you do.
this works out much better.
You'll say something weird, and I just got to get on you, and then we'll go down a rabbit hole we don't need to go down. But yeah, hey, everybody that listen to the podcast, thank you. Everybody that was here on the live stream, thank you as well. I appreciate all of the commentary. I'm glad you guys can have conversations over there by yourself because I get so wrapped up in my own head over here that I don't even read the comments barely. But you guys seem to have had fun tonight. So yeah, as always, you guys are sweet, and we will see you next week. Bye. Bye, buddy.